Okay, in this video I will showcase how I use Joystick Gremlin together with Vjoy in BMS in VR, but it will work if you're using head tracking as well to operate my mouse without even using my mouse. So only by tying the mouse cursor to the head movement, and then I have one button on my joystick that let me center the mouse to the field of view, and another press of that button offsets the mouse cursor by a given amount. So for me, currently I've set it up. It offsets the mouse cursor 500 pixels downwards. And I have another button on my HOTAS that are used to give the left and right mouse button clicks. So in the beginning of that video, I will first center the mouse cursor to my field of view, and then operate some buttons on the ICP. So I've pressed the center button, and now I'm pressing or operating the mouse cursor on the ICP together with my button on the HOTAS for left and right click. That works very well for everything. Let's say on the ICP, maybe the upper MFD buttons, maybe down to mouse to arm. Everything that is on the side panels that might be a little bit of a pain, because I would have to stretch my neck quite heavily in order to get the mouse cursor over a button. In order to do that, I will now look up to better showcase that offset. So currently my mouse cursor is still fixed to the center of view, and after I pressed and invoked my Joystick Gremlin script, the mouse cursor is now offset from the center of view by the given amount. So as I said, I think currently I have it at 400, and it will still follow my head movements. So now I can look on the side panels. So basically I look here, but my mouse cursor is further down and can easily operate all the buttons. As you can see here, that is basically I have on my HOTAS on my comp switch that has a press function. So I have the normal press is invoke left click, and with pinky switch together it invokes right click. So now I'm going to the side panels. So here you can see now after a certain amount of time, usually the mouse cursor disappears. In order to be able to bring it back visually, I'm using the same button on my stick, just with another macro, and this macro just inputs a mouse movement of 1 pixel in order to get the mouse cursor visually again. You could achieve the same by pressing the left or invoking left or right mouse click, but on the other hand, doing that might introduce unwanted clicks on callbacks in the cockpit. So it's better to do that with simulating a very slight wiggle of the mouse. So I've pressed that. Now my mouse cursor is back, and I can easily operate all the switches and buttons on the side panels without even breaking my neck. So as I said, if the mouse cursor disappears, I can, with a short press on my button on the stick, I can bring back the mouse cursor visually. So here I'm operating as well the ICP with the offset, so I don't have to look down that much. And for me, on my Quest 3 with about 400 pixel offset, that's still very good in the field of view. And to be honest, it doesn't take much longer to operate everything than if I would use the physical mouse. So as we see, my mouse cursor is still offset. Now I bring it back to the center of view with my Joystick Gremlin script by pressing my button as a long press on my button. And now it's back centered to the field of view. Okay, now I will go through the whole setup. First of all, if we look into the launcher, into the key mapping, what we want to see or what to use is the cockpit toggle mouse cursor center. As we can see, I have currently bound it to a virtual button, Vjoy device button DX1. I'm gonna delete that for the moment and show you how I have set that function up. So I clear the X, save it, now the DX1 button is gone. Next I will bring up Joystick Gremlin, and on my that's my joystick. I want to have the whole function on, that's button 31, that's on my joystick is a on the TMS. I have a push button on the TMS. For the moment I will delete everything here and will start with a simple remap. So I add a remap and remap that to joystick button 1. That's just the intermediate thing in order to get that DX1 from Vjoy into the launcher. So if I now restart my profile and look into the input viewer, so the Vjoy buttons and my stick buttons. If I now press my physical button on the stick, that at the same time invokes the virtual button on the Vjoy device. So in order to bind that correctly in the launcher, I will use the so-called input repeater. What the input repeater does, I'll quickly show that in the input viewer again. Let me bring up again the buttons. If I now press my physical button, it will within 5 seconds it will repeat all the inputs, and that is the way how you can trick BMS to not see the physical input anymore and only pick up the Vjoy input. So how I'm gonna do that, so I let the input repeater run. I have the launcher open, and now I'll press the button on my the physical button on my stick, and now double click on the callback I want to bind something to, and because of the input repeater, it now only picks up the virtual button and not the physical button. I could as well, let me clear that again. open that first and press the physical button. Yeah, and as we see now, it would take both inputs, which is not what we want. So we want only the virtual one. Therefore, I'll clear that again and do the binding again with the input repeater. So press the button and within 5 seconds open the or double click on the callback, and now it only picks up the virtual device. So now I save that. Okay. Now I can go back into Joystick Gremlin and start building up my the script or the macro that I want. So I'm still on my button 31. That's my physical button that I press. I can now delete that intermediate remap because I invoke that DX1 a little bit different. So I delete that, and what I add now is a tempo. So a tempo allows me to map two different things onto the same button. One is executed if I press the physical button 31 with a short press, and the other is invoked if I press the physical button as a long press. And time between what Joystick Gremlin assumes as a short or a long press can be set here. So that is 500 milliseconds. I leave that on default because that's good enough for me to use that. So first of all, on the short press, I'll add a macro, and that macro only has so I add a single action, which usually if you press that, it automatically inputs a pause, but I don't want to invoke a pause. What I want to invoke is a mouse motion, and the mouse motion is a change of the mouse position in the y-axis by a single pixel. That is basically that function. If I press it short, so my mouse cursor is not visible in BMS, then I can short press that button, and that brings back the mouse cursor visible, so the yellow X. That's all I have to do on the short press of the tempo. And now on the long press, I add as well a macro. So that macro will have some more actions. So I'll add a few pauses and then start from the beginning. So the first one will be as well a mouse motion. And that will be again just a small mouse motion in order to make the mouse cursor visible. That is necessary because that whole centering of recentering of the mouse only works reliable in BMS if the mouse cursor is visible. So with that function, we make the mouse cursor visible first. Then I'll add a small delay. That is, it depends on your system. So I think 100 milliseconds is feasible, so it doesn't add too much of a delay and still works reliably. Okay. The next, I'll change that into a Vjoy button press. So I'll now press the button 1, which is in the end in the launcher bound to the callback for centering the mouse. Then I'll leave another small pause. Then I'll release the Vjoy button again. leave another pause and add another function, and here I add another mouse motion, and now I'll enter my offset that I really want to have. So for the moment that's 400. And that is something you have to test out on your system with your resolution, how much offset you want to introduce. Then I'll save my profile, restart it, quickly look into, so turn off the repeater. Always don't forget that. That can, if you run Joystick Gremlin together with BMS, so the input repeater should only be used during mapping. So I'll open the input viewer, open the buttons and heads, open that again. So now if I do a short press, nothing happens. Only my physical button is invoked, and as the physical button is not bound to anything in BMS, nothing will happen. Now I'll press it longer, and on release, as we see, the Vjoy 1 was released and my mouse snapped down. So again, I put my mouse up here, press it long press, and on release of that long press, the Vjoy button 1 was invoked and my mouse was offset by 400 pixels. So that shows me that the macro is working as intended. Now I can quickly check in the launcher. Again, if I short press my DX31 button, and it's still recognized in the launcher in the assignment, but nothing happened because I haven't bound it to any callback. And now I do the long press. And with the long press now, the DX1 virtual button was invoked, which in the end will either center the or will toggle the mouse cursor in once we're in 3D Pit. So either if it's at the moment centered to the field of view, it will release it and offset it by the amount of pixel, and if it's in the so-called free state mode and I press it again, because of the DX1 command, it will snap back to the center of view. So there's one last setting that needs to be made to make that work reliably, and that is in, let me quickly open up so in Falcon BMS user config, my Falcon BMS user config. So there is one setting which is 3D clickable cursor anchored, which is default on. That is, I've turned that off. That means if you look onto a button, it will not snap onto that button, because if you have that turned on, then once the mouse cursor snaps onto a button and you look away, it will not follow your head movement. So it will stick to that button and needs real physical input of the mouse to basically release it from that snap button. Therefore, in order to get that whole setup to work, you need to disable the cursor anchored feature by adding that line into your Falcon BMS user config. And that's basically the whole setup that I'm using. I'm bringing back Joystick Gremlin just to quickly still have the the tempo and macros. So short press is basically only there to give a very small mouse input without touching the mouse. So by pressing that button short, and the long press is basically what is then used for either offsetting the mouse by 400 pixel, or if it's offset and you press it again, due to the Vjoy 1 binding in the launcher, it will bring the mouse button back to the center. So that's it. Thanks for watching and bye.